Hi guys, welcome to day one of remote learning. So like we told you, we're gonna actually work on some review topics for at least the first few days, some things that we think would be to everybody's benefit to practice. So for today, Tuesday, March 17th, what we're gonna do is we're gonna review adding and subtracting fractions and mixed numbers. Together on this video, we're gonna fill out all the odd problems. And then afterwards, you're going to do the even problems for homework. Under the assignments tab, if you follow the directions, you can click on this, you can download it, print it, or you can do work on a separate sheet of paper and then you upload and hand in to get credit for your homework assignment. Okay? Okay, here we go. I'm going to get started. Again, don't hesitate to pause the video, go backwards, go forwards if you think you're good. Just don't forget to hand in your homework so that you get credit, which will be added onto PowerSchool Learning. Okay? Please email if you have any questions as well. So let's look at the first one. It says 5/4 minus 3/4. Well, if the denominators are the same, then we combine like terms on top. So we know 5 minus 3 is 2. So we get 2/4. And 2 and 4 are both divisible by 2. You can divide them both by 2, right? So we get 1/2. So that's the answer, 1/2. Okay, if we look at the next one, the denominators are the same. They're both 5, right? To add and subtract fractions, denominators need to be the same. So for this one, we'll just add on top. So we have a 2 plus a 4 over a 5, which is 6/5. That's an improper fraction, right? We could also write that as 1 and 1/5 because 5 goes into 6 one time fully with 1 remaining, right? And you can always check. 1 times 5 is 5 plus 1 is 6. So it's the same as 6/5. Those are the same. Now be careful for the next one. For the next one, it just says 6 minus 1/6. And some people get confused because when you look at problem number 5, you don't see a denominator. So you want to create one. So let's put a 1 under the 6. Now we need denominators to be the same. So we're going to multiply the left denominator by a 6. We have to do it to the top and the bottom. So on the left, we'll have 6 times 6, which is 36 over 6, minus 1 over 6. Now that the denominators are the same, we have 36 minus 1, which is 35 over 6. So we can leave our answer in that form. Now if we want to write it as a mixed number, we ask ourselves, okay, 6 goes into 35 how many times fully? Well, 6 times 6 is 36, so it's not quite 6 times. So 5 times 6 is 30, and another 5 would be left. So we check that. 5 times 6 is 30, and 30 plus 5 is 35 over 6. So these are the same. 35 over 6 is simplified improper fraction, and 5 and 5/6 is the answer as a mixed number. Now let's try the next one. So the next one's a little easier because the denominators are already the same. So we just say everything's over 5. Remember, it's not 10. We don't add the bottoms. We just need a common denominator. So on top we have 1 plus 1. So we have 2/5. And that's less than 1, so we're not going to write it as a mixed number, right? 2 over 5. Okay, for this next one, so we have negative 4/5 minus 7 over 8. So the denominators need to be the same. When in doubt, if you're not sure, just multiply by the opposite denominator. So I'll multiply the right side by 5. What you do the bottom, you do the top. And we'll multiply the left side by 8. So on the left, we have 8 times 4 is 32 over 8 times 5 are 40 minus 7 times 5 is 35 over 40. Now that the denominators are the same, we can simplify. So I have to have a negative here, negative there. Okay, so we have in the denominator 40. And on top, we have negative 32 minus 35. So negative 2 minus 35 is negative 67 all over 40. And if I try to simplify, let me ask myself, do 67 and 40 have anything that they're both divisible by? No, they both don't divide by 10. They both don't divide by 4. I think that's it. So we're done. Okay, let's try the next one. So negative a third plus 3/8. Denominators aren't the same, so we have to multiply the right side by 3 on top and bottom, and the left side by 8 on top and bottom. So we have negative 8 over 24 plus 9 over 24. So the denominator is 24, and the numerator is negative 8 plus 9, which is positive 1 over 24. Notice I'm not adding the denominators. I don't turn it to 48. In the beginning, I don't say I have 8 plus 3 or 11. Those are some common mistakes that people make. Okay? So next, let's do the next one. So I have a 5 and a 3 in the denominator. So I can't add or subtract them. I can't say I have 8. I can't say I have 2. It's not 5 minus 3. So I need to multiply the right side by 5. You can always multiply by the opposite denominator if you're not sure. Multiply the left side by 3, top and bottom. So for the left one, we have 3 times 9 is 27 over 15. And negative 4 times 5 is negative 20. I always like to throw the negative in the numerator, over 15. The denominators are the same, so it's over 15. On top, we have 27. Plus, you can kind of think of it as like the word and, a negative 20. So if I have $27 and I negate or take away 20, I have 7 left. So our final answer is 7 over 15. Okay. So now I'm going to go on to the other problems. And at any point you can pause, go back, whatever you need to do, okay? And send me an email if you're stuck or confused. So let's continue with the odd problems. So for number 15, the denominators aren't the same, so we'll multiply the right side by 5 and the left side by 8. So the left fraction, 8 times 9 is 72 over 45. So I made it over 40. My mistake. And then, so 8 times 9, 72 over 8 times 5, 40. Minus 5 times 5, which is 25 over 40. Now that the denominators are the same, it's not 40 minus 40, so it's not 0 in the denominator. It's not 80. It's just the common denominator, 40. And on top, we had 72 minus 25. Wait, can you guys, sorry, can't see that. So one thing you want to do is you want to make sure that you're not, adding the denominators, you're not subtracting the denominators, you're just trying to create a common denominator. You can always multiply by the opposite denominator, and once they're the same, you just write the terms on top all over that same denominator, okay? So once we do that and we get 72 minus 25, we end up with 47 over 40. And we can leave it as an improper fraction. You could write it as 1, right? 40 goes in 47 one time with 7 remaining. 1 and 7 40s. Those are the same answer. Okay, let's try the next one. So these are a little bit harder, right? If we see one fraction, we want to make others fractions. So I'll put the negative 1 over a 1. And then I'm going to turn this mixed number into improper fractions. So disregard the negative. 2 times 5 is 10, and 10 plus 2 is 12. So we have 12 over 5. We have negative 1 over 1 and a negative 12 over 5. So we need denominators to be the same, so we'll multiply the left side by 5 on top and bottom. The right side, if we multiply by 1, it's the same. So we now have denominator is 5. On top we have -1 times 5 or -5 and a -12. So we have -17 over 5. I'm going to leave my answers as improper fractions. But I could also say 5 goes into 17 2 times. So 2 times, or actually 3 times, right? 3 times 5 is 15 with 2 remaining. So it's the same as -3 and 2/5. 3 times 5 is 15 plus 2 is 17, 17 over 5. Okay, next one. I don't like to work with the mixed numbers, so I'm going to rewrite it. So I have 3 times 7 is 21. All right, 3 times 7 is 21, and 21 plus 6 is 27 over 7. Okay, and then I have and 1 times 7 is 7, and 7 plus 1 is 8. So I have a common denominator of 7. And on top we have 27, and we're going to take away 8. So we have 19 over 7. This is the same as, let's see, 2 is 14. 14 and 14 plus 5 remaining. So 2 and 5/7 is the same thing. Okay, now let's do the next one. I like to practice just converting it into an improper fraction, because if the denominators aren't the same, it's a little bit harder. So we have 2 times 3 is 6. 6 plus 1 is 7 thirds. Right? I take the number in front, even if it's negative, disregard that. So I say 2, I multiply by the bottom, so 2 times 3 is 6, and then I add the number on top, plus 1, that gets me 7, and then I leave it over the bottom 3. Again, you do 2, the front number, times the bottom, so 2 times 3 is 6, and then you add the top, so I add 1, and that's how you get this new top 7. And you leave it over 3. Plus negative, disregard the negative, so I have 1 times 3 is 3, plus 2 is 5 over 3. Again, how I did that. 1 times 3 is 3, plus 2 is 5, and you leave it over 3. Now the denominators are the same, so we have over 3. So it's 7 plus, you could say, is and minus 5, or take away 5. So we have 2/3. Okay, we have 3 more to do. The next one's a little bit harder. So when we look at this, we say, okay, 1, so I'm going to leave the negative in front. 1 times 8 is 8, right? And then 8 plus 7 is 15 over 8. Plus a negative. 3 times 2 is 6, and 6 plus 1 is 7 over 2. Now you have 2 ways of doing this. You need a common denominator. If I have an 8 and a 2, I know that if I multiply the right side by 4, I'll create a common denominator, right? So if I multiply bottom and top by 4, I'll get a common denominator. So I would have negative 15 over 8, and so negative 7 times 4 is negative 28 over 8. So then we have the common denominator, and we say the denominator is 8. So on top we have a negative 15 and a negative 28, and when we combine those we get a negative 43. If you got confused, you could always multiply by the opposite number, and I'll do that for the next problem. You could always multiply the left side by 2 and the right side by 8 on top and bottom, and then you would just simplify in the end. Okay, so we'll do that for this next one. So for the next one, we have in front, we'll put a negative. We have 2 times 6 is 12, and then 12 plus 5 will get 17. So we have negative 17 over 6, minus a negative 1 times 4 is 4, and 4 plus 1 is 5, so 5/4. Now double negative turns